Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about the health insurance request that's been raised. And Ben, you have much more stake in this as well. And we would love to hear your thoughts on it. And like how so we have started this, and this is going to be um, uh, voted by consent on Monday. Just initially, or if we need more time for it, like let's talk further, and we will start voting on it in 2 weeks. But at least now we can start talking about um, discretionary budget request and health insurance. So maybe Ben, you would want to talk more about this.
Sure. So I've in the past been self-employed and actually came to the U.S. from living in England, where I had wonderful National Health Service insurance, and discovered that because I had no medical history here, my daughter and I couldn't even get insurance. We had to apply. There was a company that insured the contractors in Iraq. They were the only people who would insure us when we first moved here. And because I'd had a lot of experience, unfortunate experience with healthcare systems and how things can go wrong, I've thought a lot about pre-existing conditions. I mean, some of this has been taken away because of the Affordable Care Act, but we don't know how long we can rely on that. But there's all sorts of really strange things about once pre-existing conditions arise. There's things like if you're self-employed and then take a job, you can never be self-employed again because you'd never be able to get insurance. So it's a extremely complicated thing, and it's just such a bizarre system that we have that employees are basically indentured servants to their companies that you can't leave because you need to keep your health insurance. And so I've just recently negotiated taking unpaid leave of absence from my job so I can focus on National Voter File. And a very big concern, because my partner is also self-employed, was keeping health insurance. And so it occurs to me that, especially as we start getting closer to 2018, there's probably going to be a number of us that are going to think about quitting our jobs and joining this movement. And this is a huge barrier that shouldn't be there. And I had a meeting with the head of benefits in my company, and we have great benefits in my company. They've done a lot of research. And so she was saying that, you want to, from her point of view, you want to find a broker who can help you assemble all of this. She thought that minimum 50, you need 50 people in the pool to make it even worthwhile. 100 would be a better number. So that would be an interesting thing. I don't know at what point we should poll prog coders to see who would be interested in something like this. We would probably need to organize it out of whatever state we're incorporated in, which is that New York?
It's in Michigan.
Okay. Blue Cross Blue Shield. Anybody? No. So we probably want to find a broker in Michigan. That's probably how it would work. I wasn't sure about how it would work with people in different states, but apparently that's not a problem as long as we find the right underwriter. So I have no idea how much it would cost. I get the sense that unlike my company, there's a lot of young people in prog coders, so insurance is a little less expensive because of who we'd be insuring. But I think it's definitely worth exploring. I think it's an interesting talking point with respect to the Affordable Care Act, like, as part of our healthcare push, how much more practical can we get than actually looking at getting health insurance? So I think it would be something quite beneficial to our movement.
Can I just say that this is so beautiful? Like, it's in parallel of what we're fighting for right now. Like, we've been so focused on healthcare, and we're hearing a lot of the issues that the healthcare organizations are working on. And in parallel, like, us, our technologists ourselves are really looking for ways to be sustainable in ourselves in terms of healthcare. And like, And I guess this is where I ask Stephen. So Stephen has been a healthcare lawyer, right? Something like um, for a long time now. And like when you say when how so let's I'm thinking of this in a way of like moving backwards too. Like if for example by June or by July we are providing healthcare services to 50 members or 100, what does that entail? Because I'm seeing this as a member service as well. And what we're doing right now is essentially thinking about the possibility of moving at scale, right? Like if we are to increase our numbers to like we're just we've reached 1,000 members now, by the way. So of course that's like just a fraction of which are doing something, and like like a huge portion of it is not. But um, these are some things that we can create a model of and use that scale eventually to to provide service to our members. And and if we were to raise a certain amount of money in a pool and like bring an opt-in version in an opt-in fee for the members, if we were to create something this year or sometime this year that we could sponsor 100 coders for 100 members' health insurance, and it's mainly like you know like app leaders, volunteers, staffers, members, and definitely these folks will go through the same process, or do we go about it in a membership way, like we're in it's a paid membership? So these are questions that are definitely part of the operational part of it. So what do you think, Stephen or Cam? Yeah.
Well, first, as I said at the beginning of this, I find this incredibly exciting. Insurance has been a huge issue for me, not only in my career, but personally. I went through a similar situation to what you described, Ben, where after I left my place of employment and went off and became self-employed, I could not get insurance for two members of my family. Most companies would not insure me at all, but the only two that I could find that would insure two of my members. I would have to pay for four, and two of them would be excluded because of pre-existing conditions. So that, of course, was all before January 1, 2014, when the most important portions of the Affordable Care Act kicked in. So anyway, my personal story aside, there are a lot of issues that this brings up. Let's deal with the first one, which is prog code itself. If prog code undertakes to do this, it in all likelihood will come under the auspices of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, otherwise known by the acronym ERISA. ERISA governs plans that include health insurance, pension, just about any kind of employee benefit you can imagine are covered by it. And it includes it for actual employers. It includes it for associations and organizations that endeavor to provide insurance. If we provide it, we have to provide it to everyone in the organization who comes in to our definition of who is a member. People can opt out of it, certainly if they have other insurance, but we would have to make it available to them. What that would mean is if we are covering part of the cost of it, we would have to cover that same proportion of cost for everybody who wants to be part of it. So it could create a bit of a hurdle for us.
So this sets up us in a conversation about who our members are if we are to serve this.
That's correct, because what's going to happen is anybody who is similarly situated with respect to the provider of the benefit, that would be prog code, must be offered the same as a right of having been part of that either place of employment or in our condition, part of the organization, the association, or nonprofit organization. So we would have to be able to offer it to everybody. It's up to us how much. I should say it's up. When I say us, the Prog Code community, it's up to the Prog Code community as to what proportion of the premium Prog Code would cover. So, if it comes down to a matter of people just not being able to get it and they want to be able to have insurance that they pay for out of their pocket at a lower cost, that's a possibility. But the employee, ERISA would require us to provide it to everyone and not just to, people that we selectively choose to provide it.
So just to reiterate, everyone we consider as a member,
right,
and they have the option to opt out.
Right.
And there's a way for us to lessen their premiums through a pool of funding that we fund out.
There are a number. I said number one because there are a lot of issues. I'll cover as many or as few as you want me to right now. Because I have dealt, as I said at the beginning, I've dealt with this. I've dealt with it from the standpoint of obtaining commercial insurance for organizations, and I have dealt with it from the standpoint of trying to create self-insured programs. And then there are hybrids in between where you would buy insurance from a commercial provider, but then opt for a really high deductible, and then you self-insure for that high deductible yourself, which draws down a huge amount, making it very, very affordable for the organization. And then the organization has to pay that high deductible for the members who, need services during that year. And more often than not, it ends up saving a lot of money, even though you're paying out, maybe $10,000 because 25 of your members ended up having to have surgery that was very expensive, but it drops your premiums down so much that it, basically saves you an awful lot of money. And I've got organizations I've worked with, they can do that self-insuring part as well. So again, as much or as little as you want me to cover, I'm happy to tell you what I know.
I guess my next question would be, when would it be competitively viable for us to offer this as a perk to our members if our members were considered as those who are paying for that pool? Or if they were but oh God, it's so hard.
No. Rabbi, this is a challenge. This is great. This is wonderful. This is it's not.
Never mind. I give up.
No, I'm just acknowledging it. But I'm so I met with my shrink today, and he was I just want to share very quick. I've been talking to him about ProgCon, and he was and the moment I quit my job, right? And he was like, well, you're out of the pool now, but you're in a harder pool and a harsher one, but it's the pool that you want to swim at. So, So I'm just saying that it's hard, but it's fine.
Yep. Let me tell you, when I first left my law firm, it was not easy. It was scary as hell. And within 6 months, it was like I'd never done anything differently in my life. It's like I'd been doing this all along. And it's hard. There are a lot of challenges. So Rappy, you will have personal challenges you're going to deal with. And then you'll have challenges like this one. And the cool thing is that we've got so many brilliant people in this organization that have got so many great ideas like Ben's. This is a really fantastic opportunity for us to explore some possibilities. But again, a lot of it's going to depend on how we want to approach it. And I think it would be wise for us to engage in an exploratory group of people, people who can throw ideas together, check resources, and come up with things. What it's going to need, though, at the very least, is we're going to have a reliable source of funding. Again, I have no idea what donations are out there, which ones are, genuine, which ones are just, Coke Industries.
Oh, sorry. I was looking for donuts.
It's okay. It scared the hell out of me.
That's a reliable source of funding. Might have strings attached.
Oh, yeah.
I think Ben has a question about, like, can we have different levels of membership then?
We can, but they have to be realistic. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing. What ends up happening if they are not well defined, mm-hmm. or if they are created for just for appearance purposes and to exclude certain people who otherwise would be expected to be part of it, then the people who are excluded are going to complain to the DOJ. Department of Justice is going to step in, and they're going to look in, and they're going to say, well, you should have been covering all this. This happened to Microsoft. This has happened to Ford Motor Company. It's happened to a lot of corporations that tried to trim their budget. But yes, the short answer is yes. It can be done, long as they're well-defined and realistic.
Is that something we've been considering in the broader Prog Coders discussion?
We have talked about it from the standpoint of who gets to vote. Okay.
Yep.
And this may very well be a good reason for us to go back now, because now it's something more than just the vote. I mean, when we talk about providing benefits to people, and if it's something that's going to be coming out of the pocket of the community, then
is this forming up to be a sort of a coders union?
Yeah, in a sense.
Part of it, I see it as it's a mutual investment in the movement. So I'm committed enough that I've given up health insurance or whatever, and then the movement is committed enough to help support me along. I mean, I guess it could be either that is transactional investment in the movement, or it could be Coders Union, which may be even a bigger fight.
Yeah. No. Here's my question as well. Coders and friends. So we have a part in the plan, right? Like of essentially fellowship programs.
Yep.
That's a separate entity from ProgCode. Like ProgCode is just a support, or like an infusion of funding for that. For whoever provides that kind of service to people, right? Mm-hmm. So if, for example, Move On starts a campaign to do fellowship from people within ProgCode, we will essentially, support like a match funding for that if there's anyone who does that. It could also be the case that the entity that provides the fellowship program would be an entity that is produced from ProgCode, just like Progressive Hack Night, that exists now outside of Progressive Coders Network. And is this something that a Coder and Friends Healthcare, a separate entity from ProgCode, essentially, which is, it's going to be member-based and funded by, we can send funding to it in a matched model or something, therefore being maybe I'm twisting the law here, but I'm just curious if because I'm going about the idea that we have to keep it decentralized, right? And like, this is something that if we were to take on the responsibility as ProgCode, ProgCode in itself is a facilitator of relationships of the network and like advocacy, etc. So we're now focused on advocacy, communications, amplification, evangelism.
Yeah.
Of all of these, and like relationship managers of the whole community. If we add healthcare in that scope, it it could be like an extra scope that would weigh heavily, and like in contrast to having it reside outside. So is that something that we could explore? Or,
Well, yes, and well, let me get into that area then, because you just raised actually about 3 or 4 more issues.
I'm sorry.
No. Like I said, this is great because this is a discussion we need to have, and it's really helpful and kind of stimulates some creativity. If let's say we were to go the option of creating our own insurance company, you would do that in a separate organization. You wouldn't do it in ProgCode itself. We, as a 501c4, can create a 501c3 that either is an insurance company or can be a 501c3 that acts as a union of sorts that can provide that healthcare insurance. Here's the problem. Who is providing it? Okay. And what are the conditions of providing it? So if we do it outside of ProgCode, it's great because it takes the burden off of ProgCode to then have to act as the employer / fiduciary. Fiduciary is a big, important term in ERISA. But now it's going to another organization. How do people get insured there? And why is that organization insuring them? Go back to like what Ben was saying. Well, what if it's a union of sorts where you have to have membership? So that's a possibility. But then the next question is, how does it get its funding? If its funding is all coming from ProgCode, ProgCode is going to be seen as the alter ego of it and simply providing the money to insure. And then we're right back to the same problem we had at the very beginning, which is, why are we only providing it to a select group of people as opposed to all of our membership? But these are, again, options that we can explore. If we're going to self-insure, we probably wouldn't do it as a Michigan entity. Generally what you do is you create an entity in a place like Nevada that has very liberal insurance laws, and it's a place that a lot of the reinsurers are most familiar with. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. But there are many, many different layers to doing it. And again, like you said, Rappy, it all comes back to the laws and how they impose certain obligations and limitations on us. So, so there are ways that we can address some of these issues, but there are other things that we are just going to have to comply with because that's the law. And ERISA is really the biggest one that we have to deal with as an organization because of its requirement that we treat all similarly situated people the same so far as providing the benefit.
Okay. Yeah. No, because I was thinking that if it could reside outside, then it's fine. But it could also reside within us because it's definitely part of our member service, which is part of our org structure.
So basically what we would do, let's say we define members to fit, items 1 through 5. And if you meet 1 through 5, you're a member. We create an outside organization to actually engage in the insurance. We fund it through the money that we get through donations, et cetera. It's part of our budget. That's what goes over to the insurance side. But we as an organization are the ones who qualify who gets the insurance. They're insured through that 501c3 or whatever type of organization we decide to make it. It has a separate board that makes decisions about, what claims it will honor and which ones it won't. And that's it. I mean, that's the bare bones way of doing it ourselves.
Pamela has comments.
I had a question about what would it look like if we did a 501c3. You were asking the who, what, how, why questions, what is a sample that would work? could you like throw up just an example of what could work if we did a 501c3 that was separate from code the C4?
Sample in what sense?
Like who's providing it? What are the conditions they're providing it? How are these people getting the insurance? Why is the organization insuring? How does it get its funding? What would an organization in compliance look like under that model?
Okay, think of us as an employer. So the first question would be, who is an employee in your organization, and what makes somebody an employee? Now, in that regard, the law has certain things to say about it. For us, we get to kind of self-define who our members are. So if we're going to self-insure, or I'm sorry, if we're going to provide insurance for our members, whether we're self-insuring or doing it through a commercial insurer, we have to decide what qualifications it would take to be a member. Longevity, amount of participation. Do you have to meet certain requirements before you get to that point? Do we have we can have members of two different classes, for instance. So people that are actually engaged in activities here, you might define them as members that would qualify for the benefit. And when we take a look at what our membership is, clearly with 1,000 members, or nearly 1,000 members now, we have far more people who are basically inactive than people who are active. So you would want to take a look at that criteria and try to define members along those lines in order to provide insurance for less than the majority of people here. Then it comes down to a matter of, if you're going to use a commercial insurer, they usually have a minimum number of people that they will insure, as Ben found out. The most common I've come across is 50. And they like to deal in risk pools of 50 to 100 people for any one organization. And, sometimes they'll create a couple of pools depending on how many people they're insuring. But that's how most of the insurers and underwriters figure out their risk. And they will tend to move people to the different pools based on what their actual experiences are so far as using the benefits. What percentage of benefits do they use? And if they're using a higher percentage of benefits, they may get put into the other pool that's riskier. And again, the higher the risk, the more we have to pay. And so that would be a greater amount that the prog code would pay there. So again, if you're using an outside insurer, it's as simple as that. If we're going to use if we're going to try to self-insure or do something along those lines, it gets a little more complicated. Did I answer your question, Pamela, or is that were you looking for something else?
I still have questions, but we can move on because I don't want to take up all the time on that.
Okay, Joe has a comment as well.
I think I'll understand this after just hearing it a bunch of times, because I think I'm right there with you, Pamela, on just not fully understanding everything, but it all making sense or sounding good. I think the Progressive Coders Union thing is a really, really interesting idea to explore. That's something that could be really valuable. Do you know, Stephen, just quickly, if somebody, to be a part of this union, could they do that with a separate full-time job? Would they need to be working for prog code? Like, what sort of scope could it cover?
If we're using an outside insurance company, they may have certain requirements that they would want fulfilled. But if they don't, it comes right back to the same matter of, our having defined who would qualify and the reasons for it. So, again, I wish I could give you more details, but until we actually sit down and define who a member is and why. But that's really what it's going to come down to is,
I mean, yeah, that's good though. I think we can explore stuff and sort of just figure out what works best and is legal and go accordingly. That it's good to know that there's at least options. It seems, and overall, it seems like for a lot of this stuff, it seems like the key element is just needing very good process around what we do so that we're
No,
covered.
I think there has to be some other options there, Joe.
Chaos, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess my question now for you is this is doable? I'm assuming the answer is yes, right? And like
yes. Yeah.
and like if we like Crowd Code can offer healthcare to like it can be like this is doable. The next question would be, what is the first step to get there? Like, what is our first step towards that? In
To my mind, I think the most complicated thing is defining membership, just like Stephen brought up. I think that if we can't really, if that comes into conflict with like who we are, then that would say, okay, maybe this is not something that's very practical. I think if we can define ways of defining who is a that level of membership that you would be offering that. If we can find that, then I'm sure we can make it work. And we think there's at least 50 people in that category.
Yeah, for me, I'm sorry, Ben, were you still talking?
Nope.
Okay. I have plenty of people I can go to here in the Detroit area. I've done it in the last 4 or 5 years. So I've got relationships with people that can give us answers and tell us what the state of this ever-changing insurance industry is like. I'm sure right now things are probably a little tighter than they were about 2 years ago, just because the insurance industry is pushing really hard to kill the ACA and to go back to the way things were. But if we can get some proposals, and I don't necessarily mean anything that we'd have to bring before the community yet, but just come up with some samples of how we might define members.
Mm-hmm.
I can take that and sit down with some people here and ask some questions and see if I can get some good solid answers. And then maybe what we can do is have a conference like this with them where the group of us can ask them questions, run things by them, and get a little bit better education about what the current state of affairs is for insurance.
So here's what I'm thinking right now. Like I think I'm gonna use the NRA as an example. Yeah, and they are they have annual fees to their members, and the thing that these members are getting are one, huge discounts on shooting ranges, huge discounts in rifles, and huge discounts in hunting areas, right? And these are fees that they would pay willingly because aside from that, they are also getting magazines every month on hunting, like what are the best rifles for. So essentially, these services are the ones that really attract their membership because that the base service or the base assumption they have with the membership that they are gun enthusiasts and not so much not so much not so much as the advocacy thing that they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but because of the scale they have, they're able to affect legislation, and they have like millions and millions of members, and like if these members are just paying $60 a month, $60 a year, even essentially these millions of members are generating like $12 million. No, not even like $120 million for I don't know if my math is good, but I'm going with it. I'm a programmer, but I'm shit at math. Wait, let me just check the calculator. I'm kidding. That's the issue here. And if this is something that we could essentially alleviate for our members, right? Like, and what a lot of these new like freelancers and folks who are mostly going at campaign after campaigns, and these are our members. These are they are like if we were able to provide that service to them, they could essentially, go about freelancing and have part of their time focused on activism, and at the same time like have portion of their time just earning the minimum viable salary.
Minimum viable product.
Yeah, and that's a vision right there. Like I think that's a vision. Like these coders we are assuming really want to be activists and really want to serve the progressive movement at large. And like if we were able to support them healthcare wise with I don't know how much would be an incentive enough for them to give up their company provided healthcare, because if they are paying like 110 a month for that or 150, that's hard to compete on our end, right? Like if and because we're gonna ask them now to like, hey, we're going to do the ACA route, we're going to at least handle 50%, and I don't know even how policies like this go about, but 50% of your healthcare insurance, so you only have to pay $100 per month. But like, how can you like, they still have to pay premiums. So like, if I'm sorry, I'm hogging up, but those are my thoughts right now. Like, this is a vision. Like, I feel like there's a vision here. Like, it's tapping something really beautiful, and like it's tapping something deep into the needs of our membership. And thank you, Ben, for raising this. But Stephen, go for it.
Yeah, Rappy, that actually may be a great way to distinguish different levels of membership. Maybe we offer paid membership in ProdCode, and require that the payment go for X number of months before someone's eligible for benefits, so that it isn't just people jumping on and jumping off of the insurance, but have a commitment to make a payment of X number of dollars per month. And then qualify, and it can have other conditions attached to it. But that may be one way of limiting which members can participate in that.
And that would also like include all the member services we have, right? Like, and these could be like, that's how we make us sustainable even. But then
Could do that, sure.
Does and then the question again now is that, or is this inducing hierarchy? So we go back to that non-hierarchical perspective. But anyway, that's a different talk. Sorry, Dan. Go for it.
Yeah. So almost echoed what Stephen almost echoed what I was going to say. But I know I've been involved with various things where there's an interesting discussion about the relative merits of something being free versus something being, let's say $60 or something that's not, $10,000 like a yacht club or something. That in some ways, okay, yes, there's some interesting issues around exclusivity, but also it makes people value it more. That if you give things away, then people just are much more casual about it. But if they have to think, okay, I've got to write a check for $60, then I do consider it more. Like my martial arts instructor, he was very, for him, that was a big deal, that no matter how poor you are, free lessons were really a bad thing because then you didn't have that level of commitment. So I guess I would throw that in, that on the one hand, it seems antithetical to what we're trying to do, but I think it also, as long as we have maybe some scholarship options available, is at least a way of showing that mutual investment.
So I guess as we end this, as we have to stop doing video conferences now. There's a lot today. And thank you for everyone, because we've been all such a trooper today. Yesterday we didn't have any, but today is like, let's do video conferences. But I guess the questions now would be, when will we need to talk about who our members are and what our membership looks like, and how much is the money we should have as base to raise every year in order for this to be sustainable for at least 100 people. Even like, how does 100 people member service look like, and how, and of course, because this is going at scale, the bigger the higher the number of people who are paying for it, the lesser the pool will be, right? And like, and the cheaper their healthcare will be as well. So how much, like, I guess it's more a mathematical problem, or like, who should we talk to? So how does it look like for 100 people, both how much premium they're going to pay in terms of membership fee, and how much should we raise in terms of the pool we have to support that 100 people? And then, because if we're going forward with this, it's essentially going to inform our communication strategy, our evangelism, our outreach and partner outreach and advocacy, because now it's a higher level of service. Like, do this, pay a certain number of fee, do freelancing, and we'll take care of your healthcare, essentially. And we have jobs, we have volunteer opportunities for you, have ways to help the movement. And there's like plethora of people looking for work as well. And like, it provides a service to them to continue work, because right now the contribution is not just them donating their time, but rather donating their time to projects they feel passionate about is something they really want to do. And like, paying for healthcare is something that we could support them with. So how much is the pool for 100 people, both on our end and their end, and like, how does that scale look like as we go beyond 1,000 or like 1,500, and like, how much will that cost lessen? And then we could think about the services we could provide everyone. Like, if we could raise, like, let's say 500,000 or $20,000 for specifically for healthcare, how can we support the 100 people now annually, right? And like, it sets up a target as well. Does that seem like a fair question to ask after, like, and maybe we could talk more about this in the future, or like, let's set up another time. But
to my mind, I think if we can come up with a membership model that works, and we can come up with any sort of insurance plan that is better than me just going out by myself trying to find insurance, that even if we can't fundraise to the point that it's free, but at least we organize the pool so that, to the extent that it's cheaper than what it would be if I'm just going for myself. And if there's any fundraising that makes it slightly cheaper, then that's even better. But I would say we should just aim for the best, whatever we can do. But really, it just comes down to, if we can define a group of people, and then we're going to offer them something. We're going to offer them the best that we can come up with, and not get too worried about what it is. Basically, do it, agile. Just what is the minimum viable product, and go for that. And then if we can do more, then let's do more.
oh wow, we just inserted a like coders approach to this, which is lovely.
That's what we do.
Anyone else has final comments? Joe?
I think it's a really interesting way to potentially look at other questions that we were asking, like for applications like Maps for Change or others that we are actually producing. Where do those live, and how does that factor into the equation, especially with the second organization how we could potentially explore that with other different application partners, other applications potentially, and maybe there's a larger thing beyond just what prog code is, where these benefits could be provided. Excited to explore it.
Yeah, and Pamela.
Just this.
Oh.
I think it's a beautiful idea. I love the idea of the insurance pool. I love the idea of a potential union. I love the idea of subscriptions, to give member services. I just love the whole freaking conversation. I'm looking forward to the rest of it.
Sounds good. And Stephen, and then Ben.
Oh, I think I talked too much already.
Okay, and Ben. Sorry.
I might even sleep in club too. Only thing I would say in addition is, I know, Steve, you mentioned a couple of times either going out for a company or doing sort of self-insurance where we have a larger fiduciary role. As somebody who's older and more experienced with complexities of life, I would definitely shy away from prog coders being too dependent on prog coders to be around if something complicated happened in my life. So I would probably vote more for, let's just find a company that can handle this so we know that you can rely on it.
Right.
But this is a beautiful thing, so I'm really glad to be a part of this community.
Thank you so much. And I guess that's it. And Ben, have a safe trip to Urbana.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone. This was amazing. Sorry. I think Ellen, do you have anything to say? If you're listening.
We bored her. She's asleep.
I'm listening. Hi, I'm here. No, you haven't bored me at all. I'm actually fascinated by all of this, which is making me just the weirdest geek. I'm in a double space where it's like I'm listening to. I was during this time, although I was listening mostly to us at ProgCode. Once I caught on the call, I was also semi-tuned into this crazy, fantastic IDC meeting that was going on. But yes, I kind of agree with everyone that this is. I'm really excited about the idea of doing this. I think it's to think that completely about the whole organization and the members and I'm sort of just mostly was just listening and learning because I don't actually know that much about how these things are structured. So I might have more to say later on, but I'm just excited that the conversation is taking place and this is under consideration on the table. So I think.
Sweet. Okay. Thank you, everyone.